slightly deeper. Scott has sold to these people, or these people have had interest in his art or his installations. You can see his stuff here, right? And if there's Tommy and he's got his stuff and you want to go see who he sold to and how deep it goes and where his installations are, and see images and whatnot. So it becomes more dynamic and sort of interlinking. This is me, not Scott. He may have absolutely no interest in that kind of stuff at all, but I'm intrigued by it because I think that you can start bringing back different types of results, not just a website address and a PDF file or something. So, did you have any thoughts, Tommy?
I was interested in the e-commerce sort of section of it. How were you driving the sales through the website? You mentioned Amazon tie-in on that. How was that all planned?
Well, for products like that you create, whether it's a book or something like that, then you just utilize retail that's already out there. As far as sales, there would be an auction available. What is probably the most robust aspect of this is the database. So you'd actually have artists upload their images. My observation is most artists, and that left brain, right brain thing, aren't good at keeping their inventory, naming their work, pricing it, sizes, all that information. And what this site would do is bring all that there. And once you've got this body of work there, your images and all the information that goes with it, there's different things you can do with it. So for instance, use an eBay type model for auctions if you want to do that. But like for instance with my site, a lot of times for customers, I'll just send them so they can see my work. So then you have the gallery. Another, and you didn't ask this, but just another small feature is if you've ever used Evite or you've sent out cards or something like that, the images are already there. So I can easily have a template here where you just build your postcard, and you can go to any of these postcard printing places and get it printed for $500 for $40, or you could use the Evite and shoot it off that way if you want to do it. So, it would be a standard conventional way of an auction if you wanted to sell your work. But the type artist I am, and probably the ones that I'm searching here, they're not going to make a lot of their money off auctioning their art. It's going to be more off gallery shows, personal shows, exhibitions, that kind of thing.
Those are three of your pieces up there, right?
Yeah, these are local artists. And that's actually one thing that, and Dan, I'm surprised he didn't pick up on this because it's important to him, but actually one of my selling points of this is, and this is where Craigslist comes in, is I want to create this to promote local artists. And I initially started off because the thing that I don't understand is when I go and look at art, I see some really quality things out there, and I think, well, why aren't they in private collections? Why aren't they represented by more important people? Why aren't they getting the exposure that they need? And that's where another part of the collaboration on this is I want to bring in academics, I want to bring in curators and collectors to be a part of the board and develop some kind of critiquing system, some type of review, and get exposure. And I want to stay right now with the site focused on the Metroplex area and the Metroplex artists and see if I can create a model that works here. And if it does, then you can take it to any city, just like Craigslist. It doesn't have to be here. But I think if you're trying to do it too big, it gets lost, and you lose the dialogue and you lose the collaboration.
Nicole, do you have any thoughts on this?
Good,
plus, minus, it doesn't matter. He's looking for constructive.
I'm sort of processing it all. The business of art is something that I'm much less familiar with. So it's that aspect is very unique and it's very fascinating. And the idea of what this can do for artists, I think, is so important. And I was just as he was talking about the last part, I was just kind of thinking about the Metroplex versus, like I told you about the Minnesota project. It's a whole state of artists, a website that's a whole state of artists that are kind of embracing that. And I was just thinking about what's the difference between just the Metroplex and like thinking of the whole state of Texas or broadening it to that, or even larger than that, which makes it really, really open. But in a way, actually just thinking of the advocacy points of that as well that come out of a site like this, or the potential for advocacy in terms of artists.
In Dallas, do you know of What sites do artists go to in Dallas on a regular basis?
Glass Tire for one, I think, isn't that still around?
That's
Last
pretty
America
much-
is about the only one that I could think
Yeah.
of. And I've been in situations before that, I mean, Dallas is in the midst of, I mean, they have this $8 million grant from the Wallace Foundation to create this sustainable arts and cultural learning experiences for all children that are kindergarten through 8th grade. But a part of that equation, this goes a little bit beyond just the commerce of artists, but it's about artists within their community and the roles that they play within that community. When this was all happening, there were lots of community meetings that were happening and artists were showing up. And I can't tell you how vocal they were about wanting to be a part of this and somehow wanting to be connected to one another and connected to this, just like what you guys were talking about, so that they were a part of this bigger dialogue that was going on. In this case, it was a citywide educational system. But it goes, I mean, what you're talking about is something that's, even more than that.
There is a organization called North Texas Business something CA that was started by Ray Nasher and Pat Porter, and they do great things for Dallas. And it's what their objective is to bring the arts and business together. The funny thing about it is the perspective is on the business, and it really is. I mean, I know Pat very well. She's an awesome person, but and I've been involved in a couple events, and it's about the business. That's who they're taking care of. That's who their audience is. And I think an advocate like this can bring the creative aspect more into the process and integrate them. Nicole, there's actually something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the other half of that too is that we have this, we have this brand new center that's been open for a year, and Susan Dyches, who's the director of the center, is getting ready to really want to start a visiting artist program. And she happens to be new to the area. She came from Boston. She's been here for a little over a year now. And there are, some of us within the group that can connect her to different artists in the community, but it's really difficult for us to a certain degree in making those types of connections or branching out beyond the partnerships or the relationships that we have right now. So from the perspective of that, this serving purposes of that as well.
Well, as I'm standing up here longer, I'm realizing what a crummy job I did explaining this. But one thing that you reminded me of is that I've talked to a lot of organizations, and I've been a part of a number of organizations. And if you read their mission statement, it's all exactly what my mission statement is. But the difference is that they're not accomplishing it to that level. Just like I was talking about social networks, that they're serving a purpose, but we're not there yet. It could be a little bit better. It could be a little bit more. And the objective of the Artist Consortium is to fill the gap for all those organizations. Like, even if you found a resource that showed you 100 artists, there's still 1,000 more that you wouldn't have access to. And organizations, like I'm part of the Texas Sculpture Association, great organization, but we're very limited in who we talk to and who we serve. And there's other sculptors out there, and there's other artists that aren't being served. And each organization, their group is the most important, and they need to be most important. But something like this is agnostic to that. They just want to help all of them. They want to be a part of that and build a bridge so that those organizations can better serve their members. One of my observations is as artists reach a certain level of success, a lot of times they leave those organizations. So what I hope will happen is they'll stay in those organizations so those organizations can benefit from them, but they'll come here because this will help them get to that next level. And that's why, once again, it's important for me to focus on artists that are trying to make a living from their art. I think the community and other artists will benefit, but I want to focus up here, and it'll trickle down and help these folks.
Yeah, you've heard, I harp on this pretty much every month. The idea of more on the local, going from the ground up or the local out first rather than, solving the problem at the world. And, there's a lot of theories out there right now as to what's going to be next, what's 3.0 for the web. And the semantic web is one of those, which may incorporate local, but semantic just means add meaning to the web, but I really see this big local push. I see even in newspapers and journalism that you and I have been talking about lately, it's not citizen journalism necessarily, but as they find these